Pragmatism is a philosophy of education that is concerned with experiential learning. Pragmatism is centered around the belief that truth is not absolute, but rather, knowledge is reached by testing and retesting our hypotheses, is relative, and is never entirely conclusive. Pragmatists view the classroom as a place where students can be molded into contributing members of a democratic society. Pragmatists value learning as a hands-on experience that involves group collaboration. In the classroom, the pragmatic teacher would be a model for knowledge and prompt their students to explore concepts more thoroughly through questioning and testing their own understanding. Students aren't merely looked at as children, but as able bodies responsible for their own learning. Students need to be able to work together in a pragmatic classroom and engage in problem solving.
The main proponents of pragmatism were Charles Sanders Peirce, William James, and John Dewey. Peirce was one of the first philosophers to advocate pragmatism. He was a psychologist, mathematician, and logician, among many other things. He believed that in order to gain knowledge, we need to observe the natural world and those around us. Peirce stated that beliefs are habitual and influenced by our learning. He also believed in fallibilism, which states that we have the right to hold our own beliefs, even if they are wrong, and that those beliefs can be justified on the basis that truth is not absolute.
Next was William James, a well-known psychologist and philosopher. James adopted Peirce's philosophy, but because of James's alterations to Peirce's philosophy, Peirce later changed his philosophy's name to pragmatism in order to distance himself from James's alterations. James believed that truth is verified by experience. James stated that if one applies an idea to the real life and it works, it can be considered true for that person, but if it doesn't work, it's false. He also favored the idea that if there is no clear, correct path, one might make irrational choices. James believed that pragmatism extended outside of the classroom and could be applied also to religion.
Finally, we have John Dewey. Dewey was considered to have the greatest influence on American pragmatism. He sought to apply pragmatism for the purpose of science and social interaction, rather than to benefit religion. Dewey believed that students need to harness problem-solving skills, rather than being subjected to rote learning. For Dewey, the classroom was a place where students could learn a curriculum relative to their own lives, meaning that students wouldn't likely to be taught subjects that they couldn't apply to their own experiences. Finally, Dewey believed in democracy as a tool to mold an individual and society. That pragmatism was central to that goal.
Next, let's consider how pragmatism could be applied to a real-world classroom. In an English classroom, students could engage in group work, including formal discussions and debates. Assignments could be centered more toward one's own experiences, such as self-reflective narratives and drawing personal connections from various texts. Students could read works from authors that came from the same geographic area, and field trips could consist of going to plays or operas. When writing, students could engage in workshops for peer review and build off of the criticisms and ideas of other students in the classroom.
In social studies classroom, students could reenact court trials or participate in a mock congress where they would work together to pass a bill. Students could engage in group projects or research their family lineage. Field trips to the courthouse would allow students to learn more about their local government. Students could also engage in war reenactments and study current events.
In a science classroom, students would focus on experimentation and lab work. They could take field trips to local science buildings or go on nature walks to engage in observational studies. In this way, students could really interact with the natural world. In each of these classrooms, the teacher would work as a facilitator rather than a director. He or she would encourage students to engage with one another and with the content in a way that is relative to their daily lives. They would encourage students to ask questions and do their own research rather than giving them the answers.
In conclusion, pragmatism is concerned with learning through experience. This philosophy values the idea that truth is not absolute and knowledge is ever-changing. Peirce, James, and Dewey were the main philosophers concerned with pragmatism, and their ideas directly influence today's classroom, which values student-centered learning through experimentation, problem-solving, and social interactions.